On the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz comes an unprecedented exhibition about one of history's darkest moments. Auschwitz, not long ago, not far away, features more than 500 original objects, first-hand accounts, and survivor testimonies that tell the powerful story of the Auschwitz concentration camp, its history and legacy, and the underlying conditions that allowed the Holocaust to happen. On now exclusively at ROM. Tickets at rom.ca.
It is Elul, and our minds and hearts are filled with thoughts of return, repentance, and repair. How do rabbis prepare professionally? How do they prepare personally? And how do people support rabbis during this time? I'm Avi Finegold. Yedida's away this week, but I'm here with Matthew Leibl. We are not in heaven. Matthew Leibl, all the way from the middle of Canada.
Avi Finegold, all the way from the middle of the United States?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here briefly. I will be in Montreal on Thursday.
And Meatloaf said 2 out of 3 ain't bad, which is kind of our show today,
we
right?
We are missing Yedida, and we are here. You know, that means that we can just talk about sports all the time. Spend an hour talking about sports. No.
And alienate our producer and a large part of our audience.
But
that's, if you want sports, they go to the Menschwarmers,
exactly.
Right? Like,
go listen to Gabe and Jamie.
Yeah.
It's Elul. We're back, and we're back in this like Elul mode. The days before Rosh Hashanah, Chodesh Tov. The real thing that I got my mind about Elul and Tshuva and returning and trying to do better. Speaking of sports, Corey Jackson. I don't know, for those of you who have heard, the Yankees drafted this guy who did a swastika, as we are wont to say, and everybody's up in arms. And what do you think?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know a lot of the details. What I know of the story is that they've drafted this player who, back in college, drew a swastika on the door of a Jewish student, and it says that he was super drunk and he was loaded when he went through this, and he's admitting it was a mistake. And he's trying to grow from it. I mean, no doubt, probably because he doesn't want to compromise his baseball career. But I'm much more inclined to call this guy a dummy who got loaded and did something without thinking it through than somebody who was motivated by hate. Like, this doesn't sound to me. I think we all know a lot of people. I think we ourselves probably did stupid things at that time in our lives. I certainly did stupid things when I was in university. I didn't draw swastikas, but I did whatever stupid things. And I'm more inclined to say he's a dummy than a racist fueled by hate, and that this should hold him back from his career. So I think the backlash is, unfortunately, typical of the Twitter era, but unwarranted here for me. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that this is the very essence of what tshuva is owning up to your mistake and saying, I'm not going to do this again. Now, you know, if in his major league debut, he shows up and, you know, on Jason Youkilis's, who's not playing anymore, but, you know, sorry.
Kevin Youkilis.
Sorry, what am I talking about?
Yeah.
If he goes to Kevin Youkilis, and Kevin Youkilis is Jewish, right?
Yes,
yeah,
of
exactly.
course.
Puts a swastika on his locker, then you know that he hasn't done the tshuva, right? He hasn't fixed himself up. We trust the very nature of, I love the Torah reading that we have on Rosh Hashanah is about Ishmael. And even though we know Ishmael might go and do other things later on in his life, Ishmael is pardoned by God because of Ba'asher Husham, because of the way that he was repentant in that moment. And if, you know, Corey Jackson is repentant and he really is contrite about this, we got to give him a break.
We have to build in, especially for young people, to be able to undo your mistakes. I mean, some things you can undo. I get that. There's got to be room where we're trying to find ways, like you said. This entire season, the whole premise of the highlight of the Jewish year for rabbis is based on this idea of second chances being within our grasp, even if they are the same second chances we were seeking last year. Mm-hmm. Like it's built into the fabric, right?
Mm-hmm. Now, staying with Elul and staying with sports, but moving in a slightly different direction, a lot of the commentaries point out that one of the ways in which you can use Elul as a mnemonic device, as a hint of something, is that Elul stands for Ani Ledodi V'Dodi Li. My parents actually got engaged on Rosh Chodesh Elul, and so their wedding bands actually said Ani Ledodi V'Dodi Li on the wedding band. It's about the connections we have with individuals. And speaking of which, there was a famous engagement that happened as we are recording.
Yeah, Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce, which makes this both a music story and a sports story, as well as a just general...
An Elul story.
I don't know if any of the headlines, Avi, are going to have it as an Elul story, but hey, like, this is always a time of year with lots of weddings. You're going to Montreal for a wedding. There's weddings all over. So Elul really is an Ani Ledodi V'Dodi Li time.
Maybe we have to ask, is Taylor Swift actually repentant, or is she unrepentant about all the previous relationships and the way that she's trashed those people in the past? Maybe she has some repenting to do.
I don't know her well enough to know for sure. All I know is that this wedding, I remember, I guess it's about 13 years ago, the royal wedding between Kate and William. I've never been a big, huge obsessor over the royals, but I just remember that was a wedding that got some global attention. This feels like it's going to be the biggest wedding ever. Given the time, like in the coverage.
It's also going to take forever to plan this one.
Well, that was your thought, and I was wondering. I was like, are they really going to drag this out and milk this? Like, I kind of think that she's like, what if we forget for a second that they're huge stars and that they're human beings, and at the age that, like, because how old is Taylor Swift? She's born in 1989, right? Isn't that why that album's called? Yeah. I think she's got an album 1989 because she's born in 1989.
That is correct.
Which means that she's 35. She turns 36 in December. I get the sense that she wants to be a mom. I mean, biology and physiology play a role in this when you're a woman. Like, I don't think she wants to spend the next 2 years planning a wedding. I think she wants to get married and have kids, and then I think the question will be: is she going to stop touring? Is she going to tour again? What's she going to do with her kids? Is she going to be like Beyonce?
Every couple that I do their wedding, I tell them short engagement. Short engagement is the answer to like any of the pre-marriage stuff, because you're doing it. You might as well just get it done. And I wish that, Taylor Swift hears about this and says, you know what, that Avi Finegold, I think he's right. But something tells me that she's not, and something tells me that this wedding will take a long time. There might be a Stanley Cup in Canada before Taylor Swift gets married.
Okay, let's set some
over-unders.
Well, yeah, I mean, Vegas is basically, there's a lot of Jewish influence in the history and in Vegas. And so I think we can do the Vegas odds. What if I gave you by 2 Eluls from now? So not even next Elul, but by 2 Eluls from now,
by August 2027, will they be married?
Yeah. I take the under. I take for sure they're married by then.
It's unclear. Like, I might take the over, but just over, right? Like, it would...
Isn't that one of the answers of the magic 8 ball when you shake it? It says it is unclear.
It is unclear. Yeah, I might take the over. I would definitely take the over on a year, probably even 18 months. That's where we're like, beyond that, I think that's where it's getting iffy. I think the logistics are going to take them forever of planning this huge wedding. I think the prenups are going to take them forever to hash out. This is not going to be like a simple, hey, find a wedding hall and a caterer and just go do it.
Well, I wish them all the best. Lots of mazel. I hope that this is. They seem really happy together, and I'm all for it. Good for them. Yeah. But I think she's going to be in trouble because they're going to get married as his career ends, and he's going to be puttering around the house. So she's going to have to go on tour right away.
Perhaps.
There's a sports take that no one wants anyway, so we can go on to our next Jewish topic. Like, on the topic of marriages, there was a story that a friend sent to me about a third-generation conservative rabbi, the last name Sachs, S-A-K-S, who resigned from the rabbinic assembly, if I have the story correct, which is basically kind of like cutting ties with the conservative movement, over the issue, which we've discussed in our newer podcast here, of interfaith marriages. Because the way I understand it, Avi, since the 70s, the conservative movement and like the Jewish Theological Seminary, the Rabbinic Assembly, all the big organizations that are part of this, say that a rabbi or cantor in the movement may not officiate an interfaith wedding. And if I remember correctly, until very recently, you weren't even allowed to attend. According to the story, someone made an anonymous tip that this Rabbi Sachs had been performing interfaith weddings. He admits he has. He wrote a letter trying to explain that he's been trying to talk to people in the movement about it. No one's been interested. And then he just, rather than wait for the findings of the conclusion, of the inquiry or whatever it is, he just decided to resign. And of course, I always admire people with the confidence of and the strength of their convictions. And so I give him full props for that. I've been officiating interfaith weddings since before I was a rabbi. So I'm obviously, I think it's obvious, I'm going to be on the position of supporting this guy. And I think his theories are right. And we've talked about this, the direction I see it going. And the story talked about numbers, maybe half in congregations that are more liberal. It just reignites a debate that keeps coming around. But what is interesting to me about this, Avi, is I'm curious by the Rabbinic Assembly, by the movement's reaction to this, because I feel like this once great conservative movement every year is getting more and more irrelevant. And so many major synagogues in North America are conservative, whatever that means. And I just feel like they are going to end up identityless sooner than later.
So this is not the first conservative rabbi that has left the movement, right? There are many, many prominent, not many, but there are definitely enough prominent rabbis that have left the conservative movement. Amichai Lau-Levi left the conservative movement in 2017. Adina Lewittis, good Canadian. Rolly Matalon at B'nai Jeshurun in New York left the conservative movement in the same sort of way. Right. So there's a lot of them. And for all the talk, you often hear well, there's no pope in Judaism, so people are free to do, you don't have to believe X or believe Y in order to be Jewish. And that's true. But with a couple of denominations like the Reform movement and the conservative movement, there kind of is a Catholic version of Judaism in that if you want to say you're conservative, they kind of own the notion of what it means to be a conservative rabbi. And they'll say, you'll leave the movement. And all shuls that are technically conservative shuls, conservative movement basically says, these are our principles. We are a halachic organization. We are a halachic movement. And until the day comes when we have changed our position on intermarriages, this is our position currently. And if you violate that position, you're no longer considered to be in the movement. So I kind of respect the conservative movement for at least sticking to their guns. They're saying, look, you violate these principles. You're not in the movement. We're not telling you you're a bad guy. We're saying this is our principle and this is where it is. He's saying this no longer fits with who I am. Great. Good for you. I see that the writing's on the wall where they have, staff, working on the whole interfaith question. And there are people actively within the movement that are saying, yes, we're hoping to shift it. We're hoping to shift it. And it feels kind of like, Mechitza felt like in the 50s and 60s, or, women joining the rabbinate. These things take time. And we're in that place right now for the conservative movement.
I don't get that sense. that the movement even is really even entertaining that. Which means if they're not entertaining it, maybe we're 10 years away from a decision like that. But I just don't get that feeling that that's the direction that.
The fact that they now welcome
wants to go.
The fact that they now welcome spouses of Jewish members into congregations, and they actively want to encourage those people. They are actively doing programming for interfaith couples and families, even though at the wedding level, at the connection, at the being a member of the movement or the community, you still have to convert in a conservative halachic framework. They're clearly starting to create, at least in my sense of it, my read of it, is that they're clearly creating the pathway that is going to eventually go and say, hey, maybe we can do this, or I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't know where it's going to go, but that's my sense, is that maybe it's actually going to go in that direction soon enough.
If you're right, it feels backwards to me. It feels like they're doing all these little things and dancing around the big thing.
It's the change.
Find a way to get your arms around the big thing, the wedding.
It's the change that takes time. Right? It's easier to change the little things on the side. And then by the end, where all the little things are changed, then you're like, this big thing, it's not such a big thing because we do this already, and we do that already, and we do that already, and we do that already.
I know. It feels like you backed into that, though. If you want a sports metaphor, you got to be like the NFL. Make a change. Make a big change. Rewrite your rules. Make a big change. Change your kickoffs. Boom. Not gradual. Make a change. Recognize your trends and go for it.
I'll give you the Elul, analogy in response, and I'll say anybody who goes and says, I need to make this big change and I have to do this massive tshuva and I'm going to switch right now, it lasts for a week or two. Right? The whole New Year's resolution, you start to small. You start changing the little habits so that by the time you get to the big habit, you've actually changed a lot of other places in your life. You've done something better in this piece, and you've done something better in that piece, and you've done something better in that piece, and then you've changed. Let's say somebody says, you know what, I don't go to shul. I don't go to shul. Elul, I am changing my mind so that by Rosh Hashanah, I'm going to shul 3 times a day. I'm going to put on tefillin every day. I'm going to do all of this stuff. I'm changing everything. That's not going to last. Whereas if you say, say, you know what, I'm going to make sure I go to Minyan once a week for the next month, and I'm going to keep that going into the holiday season, into the fall, and at least pray 1 out of the 3 services at home on my own every day, right? Those are little changes so that by the time you're able to add on more, that's to their credit, if that is an internal discussion that they're having, which I'm not part of the RA, so I don't know actually, could be an argument for saying we're going to change all the little things first and we're going to be welcoming of this so that by the time we're ready to tackle the question, it feels a lot more comfortable for us.
But this is not the beginning of it. Like, I feel like there's been 25 years of a trend already, and it's the movement that's actually behind it. The movement is not catching what
because the movement has been halachic and it's been difficult.
Right, but who dictates Judaism? The Jewish people, or this organization that's trying to kind of frame it? Is it the...
I wish Yedida was here because she would say it's all history. And if you look at the past, even in the most orthodox communities, right, change happens. And it happens slowly, and change often comes up from the bottom to the level of the big halachic deciders, to the point where you can say, yes, this change is where it's at, and we are going to go with the times and not just like follow what we think it says in the book, right? So it is both ways that, the movement follows what the people do, and the people, in theory, if they're part of a movement, adhere to what the movement says. I think it goes both ways.
I wonder where the movement feels the resistance is strong. The resistance to this trend in the people, because
are you saying the conservative movement is Star Wars? The resistance is strong.
Except I don't know. I don't want to go there. We were better with sports and Taylor Swift.
On the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz comes an unprecedented exhibition about one of history's darkest moments. Auschwitz, Not Long Ago, Not Far Away, features more than 500 original objects, first-hand accounts, and survivor testimonies that tell the powerful story of the Auschwitz concentration camp, its history and legacy, and the underlying conditions that allowed the Holocaust to happen. On now exclusively at ROM. Tickets at rom.ca.
Let's move on. This is a moment when, as we said, we are moving into overdrive. We're a month away basically from Rosh Hashanah. Just as a way of introduction, first of all, what are you doing this year for Rosh Hashanah?
This will be the 3rd year that I do my own services for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. I've got a space that's a very popular space for weddings called The Gates. It's this very cool place in Winnipeg, right along the banks of one of our rivers. So we can actually go down to the river and do tashlich, which is really, really cool. And so I do the...
Taylor, if you're listening, this space is open for 2027. Elul,
Before August. And we do a service for the 2nd day of Rosh Hashanah, for Kol Nidre, and for the morning of Yom Kippur. So a total of 3 services over the high holidays.
And you've done Rosh Hashanah professionally for many years before that, probably.
17 years.
Even though you have done a lot of Rosh Hashanahs, what does prep look like every year? What does it mean to get into this?
It's changed, right? I remember, oh my gosh. I started when I was 19, right? And then my first gig for Rosh Hashanah was doing Shacharit. And the Sheretz Tzedek in the early 2000s was following a model going back several decades where we had such a large congregation that we had 2 services. A first service and a second service on both days. So by the end of day 2 of Rosh Hashanah, you've done 4 services. You've done both services twice. And we didn't do Shacharit for the afternoon crowd, but we did Shacharit for the morning crowd. But we had to do it so early in order to be able to fit in this lengthy conservative service of 4.5 hours. Shacharit was basically 7:30 in the morning. Mm-hmm. And the room at the Sheretz Tzedek was set up for 1,200, 1,300 seats. Mm-hmm. And we barely had a minyan. And at that shul, you look out at the crowd when you daven. You don't have your back to them. You have your face to them. And I remember the first one looking out at this crowd of 1,200 chairs and 10 faces. And I have practiced for nobody. Like, there is nobody here to hear me do like El Orech Din, like something from Shachri that I had never learned before, that wasn't in my bar mitzvah. I had to learn all this nusach. I practiced in front of a mirror listening to a cassette tape in 2004. I was so freaked out, and I got out there and it was just like an empty, gigantic auditorium of chairs. So that was my first one. So the prep has changed from that. You know, now it's like honing the sermons, and because I run my own service, I have some of the I guess logistical things, from parking to where people are going to sit, to what the room's going to, anything like that. But I got good people to help me, and I try not to stress. But now it's finding time to fit the sermons in and really make those powerful. What about for you? Like, what's yours? I
actually say the most interesting gig I ever had for Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur was in a big conservative shul in Montreal, where I didn't lead any services. But on Rosh Hashanah, they actually hired me to set up in the library a Beit Midrash, where we studied all of the prayers of the day, so that if you wanted to take a break from the service that was like 4.5 hours and it's just really long, and you're just sitting there and you don't know what's going on, I prayed really early. It was an hour walk each way, and I set up during the service from like 10 to 1, all these like photocopied sheets, and we went through a lot of the piyutim, a lot of the songs, a lot of the extra prayers, a lot of the themes of the day, what the Torah service is talking about. And I thought it was really cool to be able to give people like, oh, you want to come in for half an hour? Well, yeah, let's learn this piece, or let's learn that piece. And people were popping in and out over the course of the like day to sort of like give themselves a break. And that was a lot of fun.
That was cool.
I did that in Rosh Hashanah. Cool. I did that on Yom Kippur, and it felt kind of cool. You know, it was rough to have to like get up super early, find a minyan that was like 6 a.m. to be done by like 9:30, so that I could then walk over to there at 10.
And you found one like that?
Yeah. I mean, in the religious community, you find a lot of like, even on Rosh Hashanah, Vatikan, like sunrise minyanim. And it was, that was really meaningful. It was kind of an interesting, thing that I've done. But I've mainly led services. Sermons are, they're tough to have to write a Rosh Hashanah sermon and make it original every year. And I've seen this happen. I've delivered some of them. It takes time. It takes real work. So this was a long lead in to this discussion about Jewish professionals, and the context in which this article that I'm about to quote came in is due to the crisis that's going on in the Jewish community, whether it's with anti-Semitism, the war in Israel, all of this stuff. And our Jewish professionals are burned out, and we need to give them a break. And this is from E-Jewish Philanthropy. The title was The Crisis We're Ignoring, Who's Caring for the People Who Hold Up the Jewish World? And it was giving, sort of a musara, a notice to the community to like get better at taking the Jewish professionals and propping them up and giving them time, giving them a spa day, and making sure they had to take off their vacation so that they can feel comfortable and they can do this. I felt like as soon as I finished reading this article, my first instinct was like, hey, rabbis have been doing this for centuries. And nobody goes and says, hey, prop up the rabbis. Go give them a spa day after Rosh Hashanah, after Sukkot. Like, we know what it's like to have gone through crises where nobody goes and says, oh my God, this is the best. Our rabbi, he deserves like a month-long vacation. It's like, as soon as the rabbi takes 2 weeks off, like, well, who does he think he is? What? He's not even working. He's working on Shabbat. Like, his Shabbat is a day off. I'm like, no, it's real work.
I had a similar reaction to you. I would have preferred more context in the article itself about some numbers. I'd like to hear, like, to your point, what makes now different from what Jewish professionals have been going on. The article makes it seem that in this post-October 7th world, that this is the first time that Jewish professionals have been pushed to the edge. Like, I've seen them pushed to the edge forever.
Yeah.
Like, show me a Jewish teacher who isn't stressed because they're a teacher, or at camp because they're not stressed, or at shul, or at a community center. Like, I'm a little skeptical, to be honest with you. A little skeptical of like the uniqueness now of protecting professionals from burnout. I mean, it is a real thing. That old joke, everyone goes to talk to the rabbi, but who does the rabbi talk to? Right? Like,
usually the rabbi talks to other rabbis.
Right. If they have time, if they're not seeing other people. Right. So like, I believe in caring for professionals. Don't get me wrong for a second.
My response, in all honesty, is I look at people that are high net worth individuals, as we like to say.
Sure. A lot of dough. People who are wealthy, and they are under a lot of stress, I'm sure, at work all the time. But they're like, oh, I'm doing this because I'm earning a pile of money.
in order to be under all of this stress. And as a result of having this pile of money, there's a lot of stuff in my life that I can just remove, or I can find other ways that I can de-stress, or I'm actually saving so that I can retire at age 45 and be done. Like, it all makes it worth it. Whereas within the Jewish community, you're making these people push to the edge, but they're earning like bupkis. Like they're not getting that same point. And so, great, you run a foundation, you should double the salary of every professional in the Jewish community that is doing, whatever, that is doing something professionally in the Jewish community. I can assure you that those people then will say, thank you. I don't need a spa day. I need you to double my salary.
It's
because
all
I deserve it. And it's still less than when people equivalent would be making in the private sector.
Yeah, I think that people are feeling that in all kinds of places, for sure. So I guess one of the questions, Avi, that comes up here is, given that Elul on its own is a time where rabbis are gearing up for Rosh Hashanah, it's a very, very busy time. What are the things that congregants or even just regular Jewish people can do to support their clergy if we make this assumption that this is a high stress time and they want to take care of them or give them a break or whatever, that kind of idea?
So, for rabbis in the Elul time, it's like accountants in April, right? This is rabbinic tax season is what I always call like Elul and high holidays. I think the first thing to recognize is you're not going to do much for an accountant in tax season, right? They know that they've signed up for this and they have a lot of work that they have to do, and they're going to put in all these extra hours in this month leading up to tax, the tax deadlines. And the rabbis are doing the same thing. So I don't think that like needing to give them something in Elul is important. I mean, giving them whatever time they might need to actually get the stuff done. But the thing that I think is important is when it comes to Sukkot and when it comes to Cheshvan. Do something for rabbis then to say, look, we genuinely appreciate you. Sukkot, we genuinely appreciate this is what you do. Find a way for rabbis to like take time to do stuff for themselves and to do stuff for other rabbis. Because I'll be honest, as much as you can be friends with lay people, nobody really understands you professionally other than another rabbi or other ministers. I got to say, some of my closest friends are Christian ministers because they get it just as equally. So I think that like, Now give them a break. Give them their time. Know that it's going to be a late time. It's going to be a lot of work. Cantors the same thing. I have a colleague who's a cantor who takes 3 days before Rosh Hashanah where he like leaves his family and he goes to his vocal coach and he's like, okay, we gotta get this going. The race is coming, so you got to fine tune the engine. Cheshvan comes. Go do something nice for your rabbi.
I love that. I actually love that. I always think it's so funny. It used to be so funny, even still now. Like right after Yom Kippur, everyone would always say, "Oh wow, got through another tough one." I'd be like, "Dude,
5 days. Sukkot is coming up."
There's like 8 days of Sukkot with Shmini Atzeret and Simchat Torah. Like we're halfway. Oh yeah, but we don't come to that, right? We used to have this thing where no one back in my Shared Zedek days, the day after Yom Kippur was completely blocked off. No one was allowed to schedule a meeting. No one was allowed to schedule an event. There were no lessons. It was like this idea that the day after the Super Bowl, because you love all the sports references in Yedida's absence today, the day after the Super Bowl should be a national holiday so people can recover. And the day after Yom Kippur was kind of like a synagogue holiday. What I always laughed at in reverse, though, what can people do in the Elul Tishrei like lead up? It's not so much anything other than kind of sort of staying out of the way a little bit. I used to love these people who would try to schedule an event or a program or have like extra meetings and try and get something done and say they wanted to have the meeting or the event a week and a half before Rosh Hashanah. I was like, what, why? Well, like we can get, no, like we've got enough going on right now. Let's not add to what's going on here. So I didn't appreciate anyone who was trying to schedule meetings. There was like, oh, we've got to plan an event for December. Let's have a meeting here 6 days before Rosh Hashanah. I was like, no, we can have this meeting after Yom Tov. We can wait.
Here's what I'm thinking, and this is like a total not in heaven. We should launch this and make this a thing. We should launch a campaign to like get people to do something nice for their rabbi and tell us what it's going to be or what it was, and like we should highlight that in Cheshvan.
I'd love to
do something nice for your rabbi day or month or whatever it is. Let's put a pin in that one and come back to it. What's your personal like Elul look like? Your tshuva shift. What's the things that you read? What's the things that you move forward on?
I think that it happens. I think I'm so busy with all this other stuff because it's such a busy time of year. that I don't know that I'm consciously thinking about tshuva separate from it. I guess what I'm trying to say is, in the course of preparing the sermons and everything for our services, it gets me thinking a lot about the last year. And I often wonder, as I'm preparing to talk to a crowd of people, have they done as much thinking about their soul, for not to be trite, but like have they done as much soul searching as I've done just in the act of preparing for the sermons to talk to them about their soul searching, right? Like this kind of cyclical sort of thing. Like I used to be that guy. I imagine people like us who are drawn to this kind of work are usually the people who the night of Kol Nidre would go home and actually think about what the rabbi had talked about, but not like some of my contemporaries, God forbid, eaten or watched TV or done something very routine and regular. But like for me, the evening of Kol Nidre, even before I worked, it was a night of reflection. So that night alone, like I think that there were things that I would take with me if the message was strong at the very least. So I think just for my work forces me to think about these things and whether I'm going forward or going backwards.
Rosh Hashanah is not about repentance, right? Rosh Hashanah is just about the recognition of, the relationship we have with God and God as the supreme, leader and all of that stuff. So it's not so much about Rosh Hashanah, but more about Yom Kippur. But Elul is about that whole path. You know all the people that are coming to your service, right?
Yes, of course.
Yes. So why don't you start sending out, and this will make your sermon writing even easier. You should start sending out emails and call them prepent instead of repent. Right. And get them to sort of say, like, look, you can't showing up on Rosh Hashanah and just expecting to be in that mindset doesn't make sense. Right. This is Elul is the sports metaphor. Elul is the preseason that gets you there. And Rosh Hashanah is the opening day. Right. You have to prep for it. And you should be helping the congregation along in this thing. And like once or twice a week, send out something like a reading, an action guide, like, hey, why don't you think about doing something good for everybody for the next week? Or come up with the stuff that you can send to people and say, this is what happens when you come to my congregation. I help you through. I get you there.
Avi, you had me at prepent.
I don't think
you're
that's
hired.
Mine. I don't think that's mine, but you can take it.
You're hired. You're hired, and the pay is zero.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I'm so excited to have you on the team. But you're right. How many people do just show up on Rosh Hashanah and that day is maybe when it clicks in? Like that was the whole idea, right? Like Judaism has this built in everywhere. I always tell people, like, you don't just sit down and start doing the Shema on Shabbat morning or on any morning. You have to do your Birchot HaShachar. You have to do your Pesukei Zimra. You can't just go and play sports. Man, we're really hammering this today. You have to stretch, right? Like you have to do some versions of warming up. You can't just go right into it. So something as big as cleansing your soul as repentance is the same sort of thing. You can't just wake up and say, today's my repentance day. You have to. Judaism is all about this. We prepare ourselves through the Omer for Shavuot. We prepare ourselves in the morning to get to the Shema. Right? Like there's always the lead up. There's always the lead in. And if you take the lead in seriously with whatever you're doing, it makes the job so much easier. Anyone who's lived knows this. You spend all your time on preparation. It makes the actual execution so much smoother. It's just those are always tangible things. Right? If you like to make drinks and I like to cook a little bit. If you have all of your stuff pre-cut and set up and it looks like a Food Network show, so much easier to cut.
There you go. That's the better metaphor. Elul is the mise en place, right? For the actual for the meal that is Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur.
But we've been doing sports all day, so we can't switch it up this late in the game. I mean, who would we be? We can't be like the Rabbinic Assembly and be inconsistent here. We have to be consistent with it.
I love it. Yeah, so I think that, look, let's keep this in mind as we go through. We got a few more weeks of shows in Elul, and I want to be more mindful of this even as we get through other topics and other stuff. On that note, let's move to textual healing.
Textual healing. It's time for some textual healing.
Let's get biblical. Tell me a parsha, and we'll make it physical. Textual healing. It's time for some textual healing.
Matthew. What's your textual healing today?
So this week's Parsha is Shoftim. Shoftim has a lot of really interesting lines. It's got this one line, 3 words, Tzedek, tzedek, tirdof. Love this one. Read about it years ago. Justice, justice shall you pursue. And the repetition of the word tzedek has fascinated rabbis because that doesn't happen very often. Why does a word get said twice? Like one of the main interpretations is that you shall pursue justice justly, right? This idea about the ends don't just justify the means. You have the process has to be just as well. And then I was drawn to it because I heard that Ruth Bader Ginsburg, of blessed memory, had this calligraphied on the wall in her chambers in the Supreme Court. Justice, justice shall you pursue. Tzedek, tzedek, tirdof. And I find that in my life, and when I hear it, my wife does it, I do it. When we say something twice, when we repeat something, it's usually because of importance. It's usually because of emphasis. But there's also this element of again, not a joke, with sports, with encouragement. A lot of times you play a lot of sports, you'll hear people repeat your name like, here you go, attaboy, attaboy. Like you say things twice to pump people up. And I just found that it was very interesting that on the journey towards justice, you talk about propping up professionals. Sometimes when you're pursuing justice, you can easily lose sight of when you're in it, like what you're fighting for, why you have to fight so hard. If something was just and right, why is it so difficult? And words of encouragement and words of repetition to keep you on the path, whether you're Ruth Bader Ginsburg or Avi Finegold and Matthew Leibl, I mean, the pursuit of justice is anything but easy. And that those three words and this teaching that comes from this parsha, I just absolutely love, because anyone who's had to pursue justice in one form or another knows you got to be strong. And it helps when your strength can come from the outside, whether it's words or family or friends, but to prop you up. And sometimes you need that. Here we go. You can do it. So that's what I like about this parsha. What about you?
There is a lot in this parsha. This is one of those where there's like law after law after law after law. I want to focus on one of them that comes up at the end, and it's the laws of the siege. I don't know if you know the laws about this in this week's portion. And it says when you get to a city and you're about to besiege it in order to conquer it, right? It says that you are forbidden to destroy its trees, and specifically its fruit-bearing trees, right? You may eat of them, but you must not cut them down. And then it says, Ki ha'adam eitz hasadeh lavo mipanecha bamatzor, are trees of the field human to withdraw before you into the besieged city. And it's like, I mean, it couldn't possibly be more appropriate for the time that we're in right now, thinking about, the relationship between these things. And the main idea that I like to learn from this text is not that, you're not allowed to cut down fruit trees or whatnot. Like you need to cut down trees because you don't bring all the stuff with you to besiege the city. You take from the trees around and you build battering rams. And they say you can do that with trees that don't bear fruit. But those trees have been planted and they're giving food to people around. And to destroy the source of food is bal tashchit. It's this principle of like, you shouldn't waste, right, things. You shouldn't waste food. You shouldn't waste resources. But then beyond that, this notion that like, what did the tree do to you? Right. I love that like way of saying it. And like, it shows that the Torah has literary like style sometimes. And this is one of those, right? Like Ki ha'adam eitz hasadeh, is the tree a person? Right? To like, for you to like go and date, like, so I think, and especially, and this is one of those, there's a phrase, v'hamevin yavin, let those who know, if you know, you know. It's really a tough time to read this verse and to say to yourself, wow, I wish that like this was something that we really felt the same way that we felt so many other laws, to say like, how do we waste resources? Where are we wasting them? What are we doing for people's food supplies, in and out of the city, right? You might win that city. You might besiege it and win, and you're living in that city, and now you don't have fruit trees around you to be able to eat from, and you might lose and you have to retreat. And then now those people don't have the food that they were going to have to eat from. So it's, I think it's one of those mitzvot, it's one of those laws, it's one of those verses that we would do well to pay more attention to. Thank you for listening to Not in Heaven. Our producer and editor is Zachary Kaufman. Michael Freeman is the executive producer. Our music is by SoCalled. We'd love to hear what you think about anything we spoke about on the show. Please email us at heaven@thecjn.ca. To catch every episode, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And if you'd like to support our show, consider making a donation to the CJN at thecjn.ca/donate.
On the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz comes an unprecedented exhibition about one of history's darkest moments. Auschwitz, Not Long Ago, Not Far Away, features more than 500 original objects, first-hand accounts, and survivor testimonies that tell the powerful story of the Auschwitz concentration camp, its history and legacy, and the underlying conditions that allowed the Holocaust to happen. On now exclusively at ROM. Tickets at rom.ca.